Ask Ms. Burrows to please call roll.
Commissioner Elliott.
Here.
Commissioner Madrid.
Here.
Commissioner Lovett.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bryant.
Here.
Mr. Porter.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
Mr. Petty.
Here.
Okay. Everybody is here. We'll move down to number 3, which is approval of the minutes of the April 28th meeting. Hopefully, everybody's had an opportunity to look those over, and I will entertain a motion for approval.
So move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Same with those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Number 4 is discussion regarding public parking in the Central Business District. And I will start off that conversation. Mr. Valandry, which is the owner of Bullet Bob's at 417 Main, actually attended the commission meeting on the 20th to discuss the parking issues downtown. As we all know, that is considered public parking throughout that district. But I would like to give Mr. Valandry an opportunity to make a few comments, if he would like to, before we start the discussion. Why don't you go ahead and come on up to the...
Thank you for having me here this morning. My name is Robert Valandry, owner of Bullet Bob. Bullet Bob has it. And parking during lunchtime, early evenings is just, it's almost impossible for any of my customers unless they get there first. And that's the same with Penny Lane, Juntique, Mickey's across the street, Serendipity, and then the store right next door to me is getting ready to open also. I don't know if I need to get, is also getting ready to open. So, and during lunchtime, there's just no parking because Bandolero, I mean, he takes 90% of it. He didn't have a problem, so I just put up 4. The first time I put up 4, now I'm using 3 little signs. I did take the reserved and the only off of the sign, just so my customers could have a place to park. It says Bullet Bob, or Bullet Bob has it parking 9 to 5. I don't put the parking meter or whatever my parking signs out till 10:30, right before his lunch crowd gets there. That way it's just generally open. I try to pull the signs in around 4:30, but sometimes if they're having a function or something over there, they'll stay all day, you know, so I don't think 2-hour parking. I mean, there's signs on Main Street for 2-hour parking everywhere. Never, ever seen it enforced. There is a few handicap places, but it's just, there's not enough parking and there's no signage for the public parking that is elsewhere. I personally don't know. Andy's the guy that owns Bandolero. He's also the one that suggested to me that I put up a couple signs just so that my customers would have parking, or whatever small business. And it's not just about me. It's about all the small businesses on Main, especially between 4th and 5th, or 4th and 6th, because we're the ones most affected by Bandolero and the Roosevelt when they officially open, and then the Red Door across the street. For me, even though they're only going to be open Thursdays, Friday, and Saturday, those are also the busiest days for all of us small businesses on Main Street, other than maybe like Mickey's and that loan place. That's probably all the time. But myself, the clothing store when she opens, the little Mexican store across the street by the Red Door Brewery when he opens officially again, Penny Lane, Juntique, the little clothing store across the street from Juntique. It affects us a lot because we have no parking for any of our customers. And that's, I guess, just trying to figure out a way to get better parking, or let us just put the little signs up. We take them in at night, put them out in the morning. You know, I don't see a problem with that. I paid for them myself. I didn't ask for the city to pay for them or nothing like that.
Okay.
I guess questions or whatever, but.
Okay. We may have some more questions for you, but I want to turn it over to Mr. Morris, our city attorney, and maybe let him talk about the city code and the parking in the central business district, which Main Street is. And so let him speak a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Morris, I'll turn it over to you. Yes, you can, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the problem is twofold. So our parking ordinances obviously don't allow for someone to designate public parking as private parking. And then the other issue is there's a sign code that we still have in place, even though we're working on the new sign code, that prohibits signs on the right-of-way, public right-of-way, and it specifically says sidewalks, and also on public property. So in order to accomplish what Mr. Valandri wants to accomplish, we would have to amend the code. There's no legal reason we couldn't amend the code. I looked into that. We could designate parking on Main Street as private parking or parking for businesses, certain number of lots, however we wanted to do it, or spots. And then also with the sign code, we could amend the sign code to prohibit signs on public right-of-way except for parking signs downtown. But unless and until we do that, you know, my advice to city administration and to the commission is we can't just look the other way. You know, Mr. Valandri has already stated at the commission meeting, he's gonna leave the signs out there, and I respect and understand his position, and I don't think it creates an issue for the other owners, but it creates an issue for the city. You know, the next person that we cite or ask to remove their sign from the public right-of-way, they're gonna say, well, Mr. Valandri didn't have to do it, and the city looked the other way, and then we open ourselves up to a lawsuit at the expense of everybody else in the city. So that's my concern. We can amend the ordinances, but I would prefer that until we do that, if we decide to do that, that we still need to enforce our parking code or our sign ordinance as well. The ordinance requires a 48-hour notice removal period, so we have to give Mr. Valandri 48 hours, and then he can remove the signs. If he doesn't, because they're temporary signs under our code, we can actually just remove them. We could cite him if we wanted to. I think the penalty is anywhere from no fine up to a $500 fine each day that they're in place, being a separate occurrence. So, and again, my advice is until we get an ordinance amending both the parking code and the sign code, we probably need to enforce it because it opens ourselves up to liability for other people next time we try to enforce it. And I think I would imagine it's a pretty common portion of our ordinances that we enforce. I know there's signs all the time and, you know, on a right-of-way on Norris and the roundabout and taped to traffic lights, et cetera, that we remove. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I'm happy to answer any other questions y'all have.
Okay. The problem I see with amending the code is if, once we do it for one, we're obligated to do it for every business, if they so wish, correct?
So the way I would envision it is, first of all, we'd have to draft an ordinance that I think would probably go in Chapter 8 where the rest of our parking ordinances are, that says in a certain area of downtown, we're going to allow businesses with a certain amount of frontage, a certain amount of designated spots. We could do that, and we could just apply it to downtown. We don't have to apply it, you know, everywhere across the city.
Right, but we'd have to apply it to every business
Everybody,
downtown.
Every business, correct.
Right. Okay,
So,
okay.
and
Mr.
we could, you know, we could put conditions on it, like I said, with street frontage or corner lots, or we could, you know, specify, but it would have to apply to everybody.
Right, correct. Okay, any questions for Mr. Commissioner Elliott?
Yeah, you know, we give waivers, for alcohol, serving alcohol next to churches. Would that be any different than changing this ordinance to somewhat? I mean, we've got, it's gonna get worse. We know, I mean, it's better, but it's worse. You know, the good for having, lots of business downtown, but some of the businesses are gonna suffer, some of them are gonna prosper. But, that's what I'm concerned about. We waived 3 of those to have, their breweries, and, so it looks to me like if we could help some of the businesses that need a little bit of parking in front of them, it would help.
Yeah, there may be a procedure to get a variance. I would have to look at that. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I know how it works with respect to variances to the UDO, and it has to go to P&Z and then be recommended and then go to the commission. I'm unsure off the top of my head, but I do know we have a general variance provision in our code that says, hey, if we, you know, somebody can apply for a variance to the commission, and I would just have to look at it to find out for sure how that works.
Okay, thank you.
You know, I understand where Commissioner Elliott's coming from, but at the same time, I'm going to have to be the bad guy here. I mean, I think when we start doing variances, then we're opening it up
Right.
again to everybody, and I think that's going to pose a problem. You know, I know we're looking at some additional public parking places for downtown merchants. I see this as a great problem to have for downtown.
Right.
The traffic flow, the exposure to businesses. You know, there's a lot of businesses downtown, I think, that a lot of the public doesn't even know exist.
Right.
You know, so if you go down there to Bandolero or Bullet Bob's or wherever, you know, you may find another business down there that you didn't know exist, and go into it and start looking around a little bit. So I think it's a great problem to have
Right.
as far as, you know, dealing with the traffic. I do understand the problem of not having enough spaces to park in, but again, I think we're working towards a possible solution, more parking. You know, I know there's some side streets that have available parking, things like that, but, most businesses downtown, you know, the parking problem isn't all day long.
Right.
The biggest problem is during the lunch hour, you know?
Right.
And so, like, again, I see this as a good problem for downtown merchants. A lot better than not having any traffic at all,
Right.
so.
Chairman?
Mr. Go ahead.
You know, as we have these discussions, I think I'm open to solutions. And hearing some of these things, even about our code, I think it's something to explore. And from my perspective, one of the things I think as we explore options is how do we enforce? And one of the things that I look at is somebody walks into Bullet Bob's, is a customer of Bullet Bob's, buys something at Bullet Bob's, and then goes into Bandolero to have an adult beverage, and so now, does that person not have to, you know, do they have to remove their vehicle from in front of Bullet Bob's before they go over to Bandolero's? What if they were ticketed, if we had this in the code, you know, they were a customer of Bullet Bob's when they went in, so I just think we need to be very careful how we proceed, but I just say up front, with what I'm hearing from our attorney, that there could be possibilities of a way to help these retail businesses, and I'm, as Bullet Bob has even mentioned, you know, he's had some increased business at times because of Bandolero and others that are coming downtown. I don't think he wants to take up too many parking spots in that area, and I think 4 is too much, to be honest. I think 3 is too much as far as a reserved spot, but at least to look at options, I think we should be open to that, as from my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Howald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I see a couple of issues from a policy standpoint. And of course, I mean, when it comes to making policy, that's up to this board and up to our commission. If we start designating spots in front of the businesses, we're then technically taking away more public parking. So we're potentially making the problem even worse, because even if in front of Mr. Valandry's store, he has 2 spots, well, then we have 2 spots down to the next store, and 1 spot, and it goes on. And now, even though those businesses may not be open, those spots are technically reserved for those businesses. And so now we've decreased the number of actually public parking spots that we may have available to us downtown, which I said like, increases the issues that we already have. The other thing that we want to take into consideration is, and we have mentioned it, is the additional public parking spots we have. You know, the Curry County just recently built the parking lot on 8th and Main. They're also going to be redoing some parking lots on 6th and Mitchell on the north side of 6th Street. The city of Clovis does have the public parking spots on 6th and Mitchell also on the south side. It's a project that we have mentioned with the county several times on partnering together to where we have a cohesive design. Some other things that we're talking about is like wayfinding signage, because as you guys have all mentioned, the more visitors we have to our downtown district, it's a great thing. And so do we need to do a better job of directing and maybe putting wayfinding signs up to where additional public parking is? Yes, but however, at the same time, we're going through the branding initiative for our community. So as we come up with color schemes and fonts, as you've seen in other communities for wayfinding signage, we don't want to put the cart in front of the horse and then have to create a sign, then take down a sign and put up a new sign. And so I think while we're working towards things, yes, we're in a situation right now to where we're facing some challenges. However, I think we're working our way to solving and finding those solutions to some of these situations. Also, in regards to enforcement of the potential changes to the code that we may make or take into consideration, yes, we do have the 2-hour parking signs out there. I don't have enough police officers at this point to basically have parking police. We say the 2-hour parking is signs that we do have up there right now. Typically what they would do out there is basically walk around with chalk a tire, see what the time is, see if that's changed in 2 hours. If it hasn't, then that's how you would enforce that. But that's obviously labor intensive in order to do that. And we just simply don't have the manpower to handle that at this current time. Like I said, parking in downtown districts isn't a Clovis problem. It's a nationwide problem. I mean, we've all traveled. We've been to other communities, and we certainly do. They face those same challenges, and there's not expectations when we go other places that we're going to necessarily park immediately in front of the building that we may want to patronize. And as you said, as individuals are walking down the sidewalks and walking down main streets, they may just see a store that they haven't been in before. So I think it's a good thing and that we're experiencing in our community, especially as more businesses are opening up in our downtown district and drawing more folks into our downtown district. So while legally, yes, we may be able to change the code, does it make for good policy? So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I was going to ask you, I've been in different towns and parking's a problem every place, but on these parkings that they put down on Boulevards, did you have a complaint on them that they had put them up there as private parking?
It was brought to our attention, yes, and it is against our code.
Yeah, so, I know Boulevard brought up a point that he said he was a taxpayer, but then all these other people are taxpayers too. And the code says no parking there. It's public parking, so I think we need to look at that too, because the other people are as much of as taxpayers as he is. So,
And
Chairman, and this is probably outside of our committee, but something we've or at least talked about with administration is it doesn't really maybe help during the day though, which is the issue that we're having, but to explore the possibility of especially as more businesses open downtown and more entertainment goes on downtown, is to explore the opportunity for our CATS buses to pick up maybe some people from north side of town, possibly those who are visiting our community at the hotels and things on the north side of town, or even on Mabry, down on the east side, and to bring them downtown safely, and then to bring them back to either the public parking we have at different places around town or to hotels around town. And I realize it wouldn't be cost effective to begin with. It would be an investment, but something to consider as well. It would take care of a few needs in the community if it became feasible, so.
Thank you, good point. Okay, any other questions or comments from the,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So if we decide to change the ordinance, what keeps us from saying that from this time to this time is Boulevard parking, and then it goes back to, or any other establishment goes back to public parking at that time? We go to other cities and we see that, no parking from this time to this time, or 30-minute parking from this time to this time, and then we convert to the 2-hour parking or something along those lines to alleviate that. Because the distances to walk to those other parking that we're talking about is very lengthy for some of our customers that go downtown. And also, when they go into Bob's, they're there for 30, 40 minutes and then they're out. They go into Bandolero, I guarantee you they're busting the 2-hour mark on a lot of people that go in there. So we want to enforce the ordinance that he can't put out his sign in front of his store, but we're not going to enforce the ordinance that says 2-hour parking. So we can't pick and choose which ones we enforce either.
And very well stated. I mean, and I do agree. And so, I mean, that's something that I can certainly work with our police officers to enforce, but once again, it's limited on manpower, so it may be hit or miss when that does certainly get enforced. And the other, I guess my other concern and is from an anti-donation standpoint, because now we're using public property to benefit a private business because we are reserving spots.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I can maybe take a
Yes.
stab at the answer to your question. As a home rule municipality, I think we have a lot of discretion and can regulate parking on our streets and property as we see fit. But to Mr. Holwald's point, we just have to make sure that we do it fairly and evenly, and every business owner is treated the same way that Mr. Valandry will be. But as long as we do that, I mean, we have basically unfettered discretion to regulate times and spots and locations and, so. But again, my concern is until we do that, you know, we'll explore the variance option. But there are two different arms of enforcement. You know, the code enforcement under city administration enforces the sign code. We don't necessarily have control over when the police officers enforce the parking. We can't enforce the parking. That's up to the PD. And like Mr. Holwald said, I'm certain they don't have the officers to just be walking up and down Main Street. If they get a call that a car's been there for 4 hours, I'm sure they'll respond and act appropriately. But yeah, we don't proactively enforce that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a couple of comments. One, Bob, this is to you and to the entire group here. As a business owner, my first thought is I understand Bob's point, and my first thought would be to try to accommodate those kind of spots for the business, because obviously if the business does not have parking, it's not going to have customers. A lot of great points have been made, but and one of those points was that this problem is going to get, as we improve downtown, this problem does not get better. It's somebody's, there's going to be a price to pay either from the business owner or at the city's level. But if our vision for downtown is to grow downtown, I think of places like 6th Street in Austin. There are no designated spots for businesses in Austin. And 6th Street is extremely busy. I think of Fredericksburg, much smaller community. The same thing is there. Their downtown is very similar to our downtown in Clovis. And as much as I would like to say that I would like for you to have the spots for you, I think the greater good does come from the traveling, the walking of the patrons that either go to Bandolero and have their lunch and their drink, and then they're like, hey, we've got some time to kill. Let's rock over to Bullet Bob's. I hear great things about the store, so on and so forth. I don't think the solution is to give you spots in front of your store during the lunch hour. As much as I would like to, as a businessman and friend of yours, I don't think that's the cure, because downtown's going to grow. There's a great investment taking place, and I think as a whole, even though you probably suffer a little bit during your lunch hour from 11 to 2, I think that there is some residual that comes from that same issue that causes you a problem for parking, is also probably sending you a little business. And I don't think that designating parking is going to fix that problem. And that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Mr. Landry?
I don't know if I raised my hand or what. My thing is, it's not necessarily just for my customers to come in, or Penny Lane or Junk Teak, but can you imagine us trying to load up an armoire or a dresser and carry it 2.5 blocks? You know, it's not just for me. I'm here, and then I even had a couple texts when somebody posted this online that, you know, it affects my business too, and I think it was Mickey's, I'm not sure, they didn't say who they were. And I'm not asking for all day, I'm just saying, and it doesn't have to be just for me. I mean, I took my bullet cycle reserve off the sign, I took only off the sign, and all it says is, Bullet Bob has it parking from 10 to 5, Monday through or Tuesday through Saturday, because he doesn't open up Sunday or Monday, I don't open up Sunday. And all we need for all the businesses, whether it's one or two, I mean, I probably really don't need 4 or 3, but when you gotta load something, you gotta go between some guy's Beamer or Jeep or whatever, and the owner's car with a dresser, and, you know, it's not like we have a little bit of a wind problem here in Clovis. Stuff blows all over the place, and I don't wanna be responsible for a car. If you're not if we can't do public parking, then, I know in the parking law thing, the stipulation thing, that in front of theaters, if the theater's not used, it can be used for public parking. We've got the Lyceum over there that could be turned into public parking. That would be 4 or 5 places, and put the loading zone in front of my store. And then that way I got places to load, or Penny Lane has places to load. But loading zones are gonna take more places than 1 or 2 spots. You know, so that's all I'm saying, just I mean, it wouldn't, like he said, it wouldn't be that hard to do, just a little variance or something, and we're not asking for all day. You know, just from 11 to 5, Tuesday through Saturday. And like I said, it's gonna get worse, and it does help with my business. But it helps with his business too, because my customers come in, oh, let's go get some lunch, because I refer them over to Bandolero because it's good, you know? But it's, the problem is, when we sell something big, which is a lot, probably 50% of my sales is something large, whether it be a dresser, armoire, hutch. I mean, that's 50% of my sales. The smalls isn't a big deal, you know? But if we sell something, they're 2.5 blocks away, and then they have to come and pull up in the center lane, then we're still, you know, in traffic or whatever. I mean, UPS and FedEx stops in the middle lane, so I guess we could do. But I'm not trying to create problems or anything. All of us small businesses are small businesses, okay? Bandolero, he'll have 75, 80 people in there for lunch. We don't get 75 or 80 people. We get 5, maybe 12, 13 people, unless some bus comes into town and they're touring everything. A lot of my customers are Austin, Fredericksburg, whatever, and they come in, but they want to get next to, not necessarily my store, but to the stores. Because usually if they come into my store, they're gonna go to Penny Lane, they're gonna go to Junk Teeth, they're gonna go to Crafters, they're gonna go to Exhibit A, because that's what they're doing. They're hitting the little the antique collectible stores, thrift stores, whatever you wanna call them. But I think every business at least deserves a couple spots, but it's just 9 to 5 or 11 to 5, whatever you wanna put on there. I made mine, had my signs made, and it was for 5 of them was $100. And I know you guys would get them cheaper because you have a sign maker. It's not, you know, and then they could even be permanently out there. Mine, I take them in, I put them out in the morning, I bring them in about 4:30, 4:45, before he gets his big lunch crew. But it's gonna get way worse for any of the small businesses, and when they start staying there for 3 or 4 hours because it's too hot outside or whatever, and that's what's gonna happen, and you know that's what happens now. Like Gene said, they might spend 30, 40 minutes in my shop, maybe an hour, but when they go next door, you know, they're gonna have chips and salsa or whatever, and then their food, and then maybe another beer or so, or a wine, whatever, or a Coke, doesn't matter. But they're gonna spend way more time over there, and they're not carrying nothing, you know? They can walk 2 blocks or 2.5 blocks. So I don't see a problem, like I said, with the small businesses on Main, just to put a couple signs, whether it be 1 or 2. I mean, I don't know how you do it. That's what he gets the big bucks for as attorney. So, you know, I don't know how you sign. I do it just like mine, you know, put 2 in each front of a business, whatever. I took, like I said, I took the reserved off, I took the only off. So,
I have a question for Bob,
Okay.
if you don't
Mr. Porter, go
mind.
ahead.
Which would hold more value to you? A single parking spot that was deemed a loading zone and not, no parking in that one spot, or spots for your customers to park for a very limited time?
the spots for limited time would work better, because we don't load every day, you know? But when you do, you need room to load. You don't want to walk 2.5 blocks, especially with our sidewalks. Now, Main Street sidewalks are good, but the alleys or the side roads are not as good.
So a single loading spot in front of your store
Wouldn't-
all day long would not be a more
it wouldn't
value
help
to you than a
anybody.
spot?
It would
Okay,
take away parking from everybody.
okay.
I think one thing that may be a consideration is that, like Mr. Howald mentioned earlier, that we're working on some public parking areas around downtown, on Mitchell, and, I think there's one on Powell now, and some others, that will be available for downtown, not only for merchants, but for people shopping downtown. Maybe we can work with, as far as marketing, and letting people know that we do have available public parking downtown for people wanting to shop, that are gonna be there for a lengthy amount of time. That there are other parking areas available other than right in front of the stores. And so, that might help some as far as, with your business and even Bandolero. So that might be some kind of an option.
And certainly, that's definitely something we can take. And like I said, I mean, we can certainly put up some wayfinding signs currently, and if we have to remove them and replace them once we get through the branding process, that's a small price to pay to try and help our small businesses that are located in downtown. And I guess from an individual business standpoint and from having reserved spots, who's enforcing that? I mean, if I go and park in front of a store in a reserved spot, is it the business owner that's responsible to coming out and making sure that I'm coming into their store? And so if we're looking at enforcement from signage standpoint and parking requirements, I certainly wouldn't want to put a business owner, make them responsible for enforcing the parking rules. And so that's just something else to consider.
Ms. Flandry?
On the enforcement of it, I mean, even though I had my signs out, not everybody listens to the signs or reads the signs. I had an elderly lady that pulled in and she got out and walked to Bandolero. I'm not gonna say something. To me, it's more of a suggestion, and it's kinda like putting a lock on a door. If the thief wants to get in, they're gonna get in, okay? If they wanna park there, they're gonna park there. I'm not gonna say, hey, you can't park there, this is my spot. I put the signs out for more of a suggestion. I have had people pull in and back out and then park somewhere else, and I've had some stay. And it doesn't bother me if they stay, it's just I'm trying to get it so at least a couple spots I have room for customers for me and for any other small business. But I'm the only one that bought signs and put them up because it definitely affects me during the day.
Okay, I don't see how we can designate parking spots. I just don't see how we can make that happen. But I do see ways that we can possibly work with all the businesses downtown to provide better parking as far as public parking. And I think that's something we need to work on and maybe figure out how to market that and how to make people aware that, they don't have to park right in front of the business. There are other parking areas that are available to the public, and, we can work towards that. So I think we want to accommodate all the businesses downtown, not just a few, but we want to make it to where, downtown is where people want to be. I think it's a great opportunity, not only for the businesses, but for the public as well. So I think it's not I think there's some things there that we need to work on, and, we haven't had the problem in the past, and it's great that we have it now, but we need to work on some solutions.
But the problem is now, and that's with one brewery, you You got 2 more breweries and a grocery store fixing to open up on Main within the next probably 30 to 45 days. Now, the grocery store may be a little bit longer than that
Right.
because they're redoing everything.
Okay.
But, I mean, you're talking a grocery store and 2 more breweries, definitely the 2 more breweries within the next 30 days, because I know they all want to be open by Dragon Main. And so we need to do something about parking for, and like I said, it's not just me, it's just, I happen to be the one that bought signs and put them out and then
Right.
got told to bring them in. So, but now I took the reserve off, I took the only off, and like I said, I just use it more of a suggestion. I'm not gonna tell somebody they can't park there. If they wanna park there, they park there. But it does, especially the younger people, they'll pull in, oh, okay, and then they go and park. The people that are shopping, you know, they can go from me to Penny Lane to Junk Teak to whatever it is across the street, Exhibit A. And that's what most of them do. But the people that are going into the breweries, they're not going there to shop. Okay? They may go to 1 or 2 of the stores and then go there for lunch and stuff and then go out and shop. But the people that are going to the brewery, that are taking the parking places on Main Street and from us businesses, are going in there to have lunch, eat dinner, and drink. Sometimes for 2 hours, an hour, whatever. And that's what the main problem is. And like I said, we're not trying to keep them all day, because almost all of us stores close at 5.
Right.
You know, there might be 1 or 2 that stay open to 6, that I have no idea.
Okay, well, we'll continue to work with staff and on the public parking issue and maybe how to address some of these concerns.
Yep, and Chairman, if I could add to that, not only as a member of this committee, but as a commissioner, I would be interested to know all of our options so we can make an informed decision. And at this point, I don't think we really know all of our options, so I want to know those, and then also what the enforcement is. Again, that's the primary for me, is how do you enforce? But I would like our attorney to go ahead and come back to us on the variance and what the options are there.
Okay? Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I've driven down Main in the mornings and then come back in the afternoon, and places along the street, they're the same cars are out there. It makes me wonder, are these employees of businesses parking out in front and taking up spaces? And I mean, they could be parking in the public parking.
And that's a very good point. That's possible.
And Mr. Chairman, we don't control who parks where.
No.
Whether it's an employee, I mean, if that would be up to the business owner, telling their employees to go either park around the corner or go park in public parking.
And Chairman, if I can add to that, I cut my teeth on working at Randy Shoes years and years ago, and Randy Dayhoff was a terrific person and boss, by the way. But I remember downtown, and it was just packed, and we had retail establishments. We had a couple of little restaurants. We have much better restaurants downtown now than we did then, because there wasn't room for the restaurants. It was definitely retail centric. I hope we get back to that with downtown. It would be a nice problem to have. And I do remember you couldn't park sometimes right in the middle, right in front of the store. And I will say that the look of busy increases business. Randy, on some Saturday mornings, things weren't picking up as quickly as they should, and he would say, "Hey, you two, go get your vehicles and park them in front of the store." And sure enough, we would get busier because people were wondering, well, what's going on at Randy's? And so I do agree that I think, Bob, I think you're getting more business because of what's going on. We just want to try to make sure of what options we have that's good for all the public. And again, and I think you understand that we can't just do something just for you, but if we can find something to help, I'm even envisioning from an 11 to 2 type thing, possibly, a variance. But let's see what we have to offer, and then let's come back to this.
Okay, sounds good. And the employee parking we were talking about, I think that's where the 2-hour parking signs originated from back years ago, was we had some complaints from business owners saying that employees were parking in front of their business, and they would be there for 6 or 7 hours throughout the day, and they were complaining, and so that's where the 2-hour parking signs came from. And so I think most of those, as Mr. Holwalt said, we don't have the manpower to go out and mark tires or check on that daily. But I think it's mainly based on complaints. If we get a complaint from a business owner that this automobile or a few automobiles have been parked here for, the main part of the day, then we can at least go check it out and find out whose they belong to and kind of what's going on, so.
And Mr. Chairman, you're absolutely correct. We've done 2-hour parking. We've had parking meters. Throughout the years on Main Street, we've had issues with parking. But once again, that's just, when you move a business in to Main Street, you've got to recognize that you don't have designated parking spots. We don't have, for example, in our code, it is the central business district. And so our code in regards to parking is different, because from a planning and zoning standpoint, we recognize that there is a difference. We do have parking requirements if for new businesses or businesses that are changing on private property. They do have to put in so much parking spot places for that particular business. However, like I said, that's a different situation than when you're dealing with your downtown and your central business district. And so our code recognizes that as well.
Thank you. Mr. Morris?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I was able to look up the variance ordinance, because I've found it and I've used it before. So it's 1:12:10, and it allows any person wishing to conduct any activity or to maintain any condition which would cause a violation of any provisions of the Clovis City Code to apply for a variance. So obviously, I think Mr. Valandri's use would apply. Subsection B reads, if the variance application relates to land use, the application needs to go to P&Z first, then to the commission. So I think clearly it relates to land use. So I would tell Mr. Valandri to put an application for a variance in with the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm not sure when they meet next, but that would be the first step, and then it has to go to the City Commission. And it does state in the ordinance, while you're making the application, in order for us to grant the application, you cannot be conducting the activity until the application is granted. So your application would be void if you're continuing to put out the signs while you're waiting.
Okay, thanks for that information. Mr. Bunch?
From the Public Works perspective, allowing somebody to have a variance like that, I think you're opening up a Pandora's box, because in any city right-of-way, we have to go by MUTCD rules. And let's say Mr. Landry or anybody else on Main Street gets a variance, and they put up whatever kind of signs they want to put up. They could be pink with polka dots on them. That doesn't meet our MUTCD requirements. So would you, if somebody gets a variance, would you be requesting taxpayers and Public Works to be putting up signs for a specific business at taxpayers' cost for one individual? We can't start that. It'd be a nonstop, because Mr. Landry's signs may not meet our requirements.
Right.
For safety, according to the MUTCD.
Well, Mr. Chairman, on that, and thank you, Mr. Bunch, for bringing that up, but I think that would be a coordination between our new sign code and through all the different things involved with the city, if we were to look at something like this. So, I mean, I do agree. It opens up another door if you go through one, and I think we just need to be aware of that, but I think we could take care of that as well with our sign code.
Yeah, it'd have to be something where it'd have to be standardized, where.
Correct.
And it wouldn't be at the taxpayers' expense of everybody. It'd have to be on them. They'd have to do things according to the MUTC regulations that we go by.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I think, again, I'll go back to the growth downtown. Main Street's gonna continue to grow. New businesses are opening up, and again, I see it as an opportunity for the downtown district. But I agree with Mr. Bunch that I think the problem with a variance, that's fine for Mr. Valandri, but again, once we open it up to one, we have to open it up to everybody. And so, that could cause an issue downtown, again, with parking. I think we need to work on the public parking part of it, and, try to make people aware that there's other parking areas for people that want to shop downtown, or people that want to, or people that work downtown, and make that space actually downtown for people that want to do the shopping. Hopefully, people that work in those areas would use some more of the public parking or the back of businesses as well. So, any other comments, questions? Mr. Landry,
One quick thing.
okay?
Some of you guys seem to think it's just me. It's not just me. I just happen to be the only one that put signs up. I had five other businesses that said the same thing, that parking is a bear. I can get letters if that's what you guys want, from each one of the businesses. It might even be more than 5. But we just, like he was saying, just a simple, even if it's just 11 to 2 or whatever, like Mr. Lovett was saying, you know, just, it doesn't have to be something exact. You guys are spending, to me, way too much time on something. I mean, I know there's legalities to everything, but just simple signs or whatever. And like he was saying with Fredericksburg's awesome 6th Street, Amarillo 6th Street. But if you go to those streets, they're all small businesses. They're not breweries. There might be a lunch place, but they're not breweries that are taking up 75 to 80 spots. You know, they're little restaurants because everybody's walking those streets. Same in Amarillo. 6th Street is busy. Hard to find parking. But there's no restaurants other than little sandwich shops or whatever, coffee shops. And everything else is antique collectible stores and stuff like that. And that's what Main Street used to be. The planning and zoning and all that stuff wasn't for breweries with 80 to 90, you know, when they get to open up full bore, it's gonna, you know, all 3 of them they'll be full, and there'll be waiting lines.
And Mr. Landry, what you just said, you said 5 more businesses are concerned about this. So if we allow you to get let's say P&Z allows you to get a variance, and it goes in front of the city commission, and you get the variance, do you not think those other 5 will do the same thing?
Well, and they should, if they want. Or you guys can make up a plan and put a couple businesses where, I mean, and, you know, he's saying about taxpayer money. Why should I have to pay out of my business for it? I already pay my taxes. I pay gross receipts tax, I pay for the city or the garbage and sewer, I pay for everything, you know, whatever, the business license, all that. So all of us businesses, we pay stuff like that every day. I mean, it's not a big deal. I would pay for my signs because, like I said, I had 5 of them made for $100, you know. And I did the red and white just like the regular no parking signs, right dimensions according to regular no parking signs. But the thing is, it's not just me. I mean, some of you, I don't know that, and it could be just wording, but it isn't just me. There's a few businesses on Main Street, 5, 6, 7, that are having the same issues during the busy time for him. And that's just one. You got 2 more of those stores opening. I don't know how the grocery store, how busy it'll be. I'm not into that, but I'm assuming with Clovis Apartments right down the street, they're gonna be pretty busy most of the time.
Okay. Mr. Petty, did you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but it is a dilemma. I've already been through it myself. Where I'm located, the tattoo shop, you know, runs some things, and there'll be days that they have lines, and, you know, all we've done is try to work together for public announcements and Facebook, social media announcements. They've done well to try and work with their patrons that they see all the time to park in different places and not take up my 3 or 4 spots that I have in my store on Grand. But I'm in the central business district, and I'm not allowed to put signs out. We've just tried to work together as a neighborhood to make sure our employees are parking in the right places. And again, social media, we've done a lot of social media together when the tattoo shop moved in, and try to work with our customers and let them know where else they can park. And I feel his pain. You have to load stuff. I do have access to the back of my building to load my customers' large items. But it is a dilemma. You know, you could have a ripple effect. I still wonder if there isn't something to do with the, you know, on Main Street specifically, if there isn't, some kind of compromise for one parking spot per business, but, in essence, it's like Mr. Levitt said, it's really down to, the conscious effort of the person parking there. You really aren't gonna be able to govern it. You're not gonna be able to manage it. Somebody's gonna park there and say, well, I went in his store, and then go over to Bandolero just because there's that kind of people out there. I do think public announcements and working together is that our community does usually work together very well, and they try to respect each other. We have a great community that way. But you're really never, ever really gonna get total control of that. And so to put all the effort into variances and planning and zoning meetings, once you get the variance, it's still gonna happen. And that's reality. All the time will be spent and some guy is still gonna park there and try and get away with it. So, I just think that we've got to work together as a community and work together with our customers and the city to try and make sure there's enough parking spaces, and for all of us to communicate it publicly where they can park. And I'm certain, just reading and following what's happening between Bob and the Bandolero owners, I think they're all in the same boat. They all like the fact that it's creating business. I think that they all want to try and work it out, and they're willing to work together. It was a suggestion of Bandolero to put the signs up. But Bandolero can help by posting something on Facebook and putting signs up, or just telling folks, hey, try to park in public parking. We want to respect each other. Everything works together down here, and that's what we're experiencing. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Landry, do you have alley access? Could they load in the alley?
I do. I have alley access, but I can't unload through there because the way McDaniel's was set up, or J.C. Penney was set up, there's no back door on my furniture side. I have to go through like a little bit bigger than a bathroom door, maybe a 30 or 32-inch door to get to my alleyway. If I had stuff in the storage room area, then I would be able to, and I'd load there other than furniture. Furniture has to go through the front because they have double doors.
Okay. All right, we need to move on. Does anybody have anything else pertaining to this item? Okay, this was only listed as a discussion item, so there's no action to be taken. Mr. Landry, we will work with staff on possible solutions. I think probably the public parking areas that are going to become available hopefully soon, we can help market those, and maybe you can help work with downtown merchants around your area to maybe visit with business owners to see if they've got employees parking in those areas, or how maybe y'all can work together as far as to alleviate some of this problem. We can kind of go from there.
I personally don't even know where public parking is, so I don't know where I would park. I park in front of the Lyceum Theater.
Okay. Well, public parking
Because
is.
if I park on the other side, then I take up Crafters Mall, Kurt LeBeau's Garage Place, Serendipity, Landmark, Tidal. That's whose places. If I park on the other side, then it's Bandolero, the yoga place, and then that lady that has the store right behind me. And then you have Citizens Bank. There's nothing, as far as I know, around 4th or 5th Street for public parking there where I would want to leave my truck all day.
I think you got, is it 4th and Pyle?
6th and Mitchell is public parking. Technically, all down Main Street is public parking, all down the side streets is public parking.
Right, but
It's.
I park in front of a business personally, and I don't park in front of my business. I don't allow my employee to park in front of our business. We take the furthest from on Main Street. But she's a female and she doesn't want to have to walk. I don't know, there is still quite a large homeless community that walks up and down Main Street, only a couple of them. But they're still a little bit scary. We've called the police before because we had somebody freak out in front of us. We've had complaints from customers. This guy was sitting on the park bench yelling obscenities to ladies, so called the cops, get him gone. And when you, not bad this time of year because it's daylight, but later in the year, again, September, October, when it gets dark, my employee isn't gonna wanna walk to her car in the dark. Not to Sixth Street or Pyle Street or whatever. And she won't, and I wouldn't expect her to. But most of the businesses on Main Street are probably more women operated than myself. So, I mean, you just gotta consider that, you
Yeah.
know.
But we'll work with staff a little bit on maybe marketing our parking areas and you know, our public parking and things like that, see if we can't help out the downtown merchants. Like I say, we wanna help all the merchants downtown, not one or two.
That's what I mean,
so-
it's not just me.
Right,
So,
exactly.
now, I know behind me on Pyle and Fourth Street, I mean, the windows have been broken out, it's boarded up, there's a FedEx box. Don't know whose property it is, I don't know if they use it for anything, but it used to be Garrett Law Firm years ago. I hadn't seen anything going on in that building other than, occasional window breakage and stuff like that and being graffitied. So I don't know, I mean, that would be decent public parking. You know, it's a pretty big corner lot, so it would put in some spots for everybody around that area. You know, I know on the other side of Citizens, they have a couple lots over there, but that's 2.5 blocks, and you've seen me walk from here to there. And it's not just me, it's just, I mean, I'll walk, I'd walk from Sixth and Main, whatever, it don't bother me, it just takes me longer. It's just my customers. My customers have as much rights as Bandoleros, Red Doors, or Roosevelt's. And so does Serendipity, so does Penny Lane, so does Jim T, Mickey's. Our customers have the same rights, and why, just because Bandolero and those other guys are gonna be busy as heck, should everybody else have to pay, is the thing. And when Main Street, like I said, was designed for all your zoning and all of that stuff, that was pre-70 to 80 people. People would walk Main Street, they go to JCPenney, they go to Woolworths, they go to Levine's, you know, that's what they were doing on Main Street. You know, you might have had a bar on top of, where my first business was, they said they had a speakeasy up there and a little bar, but that was, you know, 1930s, 40s, 50s. Way more traffic, way more people are into the home brew and the brewing and going out to eat. It's not the same time, so we gotta have some kind of parking.
But we'll continue to work on it much as we can.
Thank you guys for listening, and
Thanks for coming.
just let me know on what I need to do for a variance thing, and then I'll get an application to everybody.
Okay, we'll do down to number 5, a discussion regarding street lighting and grant funding. And that's under myself again. Under the Metropolitan Redevelopment Area Survey that was taken back, I can't remember the exact time. Anyway, one of the concerns among many was street lighting. And so I started digging into it a little bit, and we are possibly looking into some grant funding, some federal grant funding that may be available to install street lighting. Currently, of course, the city pays the utility bills on street lighting, but Excel no longer installs street lights in older areas. Okay? So we're looking into some grant funding that's possibly available for that in some of our areas.
And certainly, and if I may add to that, Mr. Chairman, and just for everybody's reference, the subdivision code currently requires new developments and the developer to install the streetlights. And so, prior to that code being implemented, it wasn't a requirement. And that's why a lot of our older neighborhoods do not have streetlights. What the current code says, you have to have them at every intersection or at intervals of 500 feet. And so that just simply was not in place when the original Clovis town sites were being developed. And so we'll certainly look at the grant funding as well as work with Xcel Energy or whichever franchise it's within to see if we can't get additional street lighting installed throughout those older neighborhoods.
That'd be great, thank you. Okay, we've done number 6, presentation regarding metropolitan redevelopment areas 1 and 2. Ms. Burrows and Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the Public Works Committee. I just put in front of you, and for the interest of time, the executive summary for the metropolitan redevelopment area. It's got to be about a year and a half ago now, the city was awarded a grant from the state of New Mexico to complete metropolitan redevelopment area planning in the areas adjacent to the downtown central business district. The central business district was designated as an MRA back in 2005 and gives the city of Clovis the opportunity to assist in those areas. And of course, you have done that as a commission with the Hotel Clovis and other projects in the area. On page 2 of the executive summary, you can see those 2 MRA areas which are discussed in this plan. And the reason why we brought it to the Public Works Committee is to sort of let you know that in the implementation of this plan, we will hopefully help improve the visibility through traffic through the community. The 2 areas, as you can see, are between Norris Street and approximately Pyle Street, between the railroad tracks and 7th, and then on the west side, from Connolly Street through to MLK with the same piece. The full plan is located on the city's website if you would like to have a look at it. We're planning to take it to the commission for action at the 2nd meeting in June, and so we're out for public input. The MRA Steering Committee met last week with the folk who put the plan together, consensus planning, and so there are some opportunity areas that are designated or suggested in here. We've completed the community surveys, and I'd just like to thank everybody that's assisted with this. I think Mr. Roach might like to talk for just a couple of minutes on some of the suggestions that they have. It's a great opportunity for the city to improve these 2 areas, which are, for the most part, in low-income area that is great need of assistance. Thank you, Darren.
Mr. Roach, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So, building safety is working on both MRA areas. We are now fully staffed with all the code officers. One of them's getting kind of spun up to speed as far as what he needs to do. We've done we're in the process of starting an operation in both areas. We've broken it down to smaller areas where each officer is going to concentrate on an aggressive approach to blighted areas, weeds, debris, abandoned vehicles. And each one of these areas are also kind of jotting down the abandoned houses, things like that need to be addressed on the building safety side, not the code enforcement side. They're also making a list of all the RVs that are being lived in and the semis, and Mr. Chancho is working on all those. He's got several letters already out. Of course, we all know it's a time process, but we are working individual little areas going all the way across to Norris, and we'll come back across. But it is going to take a little bit of time to work each one of them, because we do have according to code, we have a process of, the mandatory 5 days for them to come into compliance, and then we'll work on them as we get to them.
Okay, any questions?
I've got a question. On that plan, some of the buildings were designated to be businesses. And I noticed that they're working on that York building over there on 7th Street. Have you got any idea what's going to go in there?
We don't. That roll-off has been sitting out there for quite a while. We do know who owns it. I can call him and see what his plan is, but we haven't heard anything. I don't think they've actually started on anything. It's just
They started cleaning it up, I know that,
Did they?
inside. They got dumpster out there and there. So I was just wondering.
Commissioner Lewitt?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I know in our MRA too, we just had another fire yesterday on an abandoned mobile home, was my understanding. So it just is another blight in that neighborhood. I drove it the other day, went up and down the streets, and it's certainly an area we want to improve, and I want to improve for the neighborhood that's there, those that live in that area. I know we've even got some commercial things in there, and I'm not sure where the ordinance is, and I apologize that I'm not familiar. I know we have our businesses that they have to put fencing or at least cover. I know there's some that it's not covered fencing in that area, and it might help as well to increase the, the looks of the neighborhoods there. So again, I would like to, I appreciate you and having your crew going out there and trying to enforce the ordinances we have on our books, and we just want to continue that.
We do have, Mr. Chancho's got actually letters out for all the screening. I think he's got them all back now, finally. Yeah. So it's coming. His next step is to cite them into court.
No,
So-
thank you so much.
Okay, any other questions?
And Mr. Chairman, just to add to that, in regard to the fire, we've actually asked the fire department to start notifying our building safety department, which they already have, regarding that fire last evening, to where that our building safety department knows what locations have been unfortunately involved in a fire, so that they can start working with those property owners. And if it's absentee owners, which in many cases it is, so that they can be notified what they need to do to address this situation. So that's a partnership that Mr. Roach has been working on with establishing with our fire department. In regards to the conceptual designs in the MRA for the businesses, those are simply conceptual that were put into the MRA plan. The consultant found some of those locations, but said, hey, it would look neat if it looked something like this, but by no means does it mean it has to be that. So, like I said, that's just simply for conceptual ideas. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anything else?
Another couple of things that the code officers are doing, they're also jotting down all the graffiti, so we can try really hard to get the owners to get us a waiver. Like the city manager said, a lot of them are out of town. We don't get a response, so we can't really go do much about it. So a lot of the graffiti that you're seeing is stuff that we cannot get a hold of some of the people.
The graffiti that you paint over or, clean up, do you see that reoccurring at the same locations over and over?
We've had just maybe a handful, 3 or 4, but they've already painted over that, and they haven't re-graffitied again. So
Okay.
it might be slowing down, but we're not seeing as much as we were.
And I know at one time, with the old ordinance, we didn't have a lot of control. We sent out letters and they were ignored pretty well, or, just nothing really happened. With this new ordinance, does that give us a little bit more leverage?
Not necessarily with the graffiti part of it. I know with the.
Well, the actual cleanup and
Oh,
things
absolutely.
like that.
Once we start getting, of course, to the commission, it'll speed things up tremendously. And we have a list. We're not gonna slam the commission with all of them at once, but we'll give you a little at a time.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Darren.
Okay, I know Darren and his crew have been working really hard on taking care of some of these issues, and we appreciate it. And Ms. Burrows, thank you for your work on the metropolitan redevelopment plan. I know that's been ongoing and long.
Yes, and thank you. I think Commissioner Lovett, you've been there with me, and the commissioners have been very supportive throughout this whole process. And the plan looks really positive and gives the commission the opportunity to make some lasting change in those 2 areas to improve. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move down to number 7, which is update on current projects, and we'll turn that over to Mr. Howalt, Mr. Bunch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just briefly touch on a couple of these that has made some progress since our last meeting. The Martin Luther King Boulevard project, like I said, we received those 90% plans, and what we're currently working on is setting up our public meeting to get some feedback from the public, as well as present the project to them. We're trying to establish a location for that project. Typically, we would want to put it in a public facility that's located adjacent to the project. However, a lot of times that ends up at a school, but with the COVID restrictions that are in place and the schools not allowing those public type meetings to be held there, we'll try to find another facility that's close. And as part of that, we typically send out postcards within a certain radius of the project, so we'll be doing that, and we're just working on, like I said, establishing that date currently and getting the postcards both in English and Spanish out to the area. Thornton 7th Street, we actually did receive bids last week for that project, and so we will be taking that to the City Commission at their first meeting in June for consideration. The bid on that project came in at about $247,000, and some change in there, we had $147,000 through the DOT through some municipal arterial program funding. And so we have some leftover bond dollars, about $30,000 from our previous bond cycle that we'll put towards that, and then the remainder we'll take out of cash reserves. And then finally on the Phase 2 reuse project transmission line, we also received bids on that. We received 7 bids. That's the most bids we've ever received on any one of our projects, and so we were really excited about that. We had adjusted our engineer's estimated opinion of probable cost before the project because of what we've seen, the fluctuations in the market. We had adjusted our cost up to about $4.5 million for the base bid of that project. It actually came in at $3.3 million. Our original estimate was at $2.8 million, so we were very excited to see the low bidder come in at that rate. But we'll also be bringing that to the City Commission at our first meeting in June for y'all's consideration to award that bid as well. And then finally, what I have before turning it over to Mr. Bunch, you'll also find in front of you the Planning for Clovis's Water Future Executive Summary of a 40-year master plan that was presented to the City Commission by EPCOR Water. And so this is just another one of the efforts locally that's going on within our community to make sure that we have an adequate water supply. Of course, EPCOR Water is a national company and has certainly the expertise to address everything water. And so they gave their presentation at the last City Commission meeting, and just still trying to get this information out into more people's hands so that they know that our local water company is actively working on making sure and securing water for us to have that future water supply for our region, as well as our other partners with the Water Utility Authority and certainly Curry County. So just wanted to get this out in front of you as well, and like I said, to let everybody know and let the public know that EPCOR is actively working on those. So with that, that's all I have before turning it over to Mr. Bunch, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Howell? Nope. Guess not. Did a good job.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Bunch.
Chairman, just a few updates. At the last meeting, myself and Mr. Howalt spoke about a RAID grant that we had applied for. We have been notified that we will be receiving that grant for approximately, I believe, is $85,000 for the purchase of some new roll-off containers that will be used at the landfill convenience center, and also for a new location for recycling somewhere in the city whenever we deem a place that we can actually put it that works for everyone. Another note, the street department is working on their chip seal program right now. It's finally got warm enough, and they're gearing up to start doing a lot of residential roads. The chip seal is where they shoot the HFE 100P oil down and then put a half-inch fractured face chips on top of it. It works well in a lot of residential areas. It is a problem for a little while with the loose gravel. We do have some tort claims from broken windshields, but it is a very cost-effective way to maintain residential roadways. So just let your constituents know that we're working, and we're going to be in a lot of the residential areas here shortly. The weather has hampered them a little bit because of the few rains we have had, and then when it's windy, you can't shoot that oil in a residential area in the wind, or you'll be washing everybody's car in the neighborhood. So whenever we got nice, warm, calm days, they will be out there doing that. Besides that, it's business as usual. Any questions on anything?
Any questions, Mr. Bunch?
I just have a comment.
Mr.
Mr. Bunch, and I know you agree with this too, so I can say this. Thank goodness we're having to wait because of the rain.
Yes,
So
yes.
we really enjoyed the moisture in our area, so thank you.
How true. Anything else? No? Okay. Thank you. Move down for the good of the order. Does anybody have anything else that needs to be brought up? I only have one thing. I got an email yesterday from a lady, I guess her son was involved in a car accident at 7th and Sycamore. And I presume she was told at that time that there had been a number of accidents there each week, 2 or 3 accidents each week. I have not heard that. So, you know, and there's not much we can do. I mean, we have stop signs going east and west. Sycamore is a busy street. So, I mean, people just have to be a little bit more alert before they pull away from those stop signs. You know, speeding's also always going to be a concern there. But can we check and see if that's actually accurate as to how many actual accidents are happening in that area?
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to check that and can report back to this committee at our next meeting, but that does not sound accurate.
No, it didn't to me either. So we could check that out. That'd be great. Okay. Next meeting is scheduled for 8:30, June the 23rd, right here. And we are adjourned.
All right.